Hello and welcome to the Focusing Way podcast. I'm your host, David Battistella. Please share this podcast with others as a way of introducing them to the people, themes, concepts, and beauty of focusing. Our website is thefocusingway.com. Follow us on Twitter at The Focusing Way. This podcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher. Our philosophy is simple: focusing for better living. If you really enjoy this, you can support us by making a contribution via Patreon as well. All the links are on the website. Now, on to the good stuff. A wisdom tooth. Why wisdom? This past year, one little tooth extraction has provided me with more wisdom than you can imagine. It has placed challenges in patience before me. It provided me with physical challenges, and it has taught me a lot about long-term emotional healing and the psychological effects of long-term healing. Flash backward. In January of 2017, I went in to have a rather complicated wisdom tooth extraction. Yes, I had been told it would take some time to heal. And as I write this, I am not entirely through the healing process. But I have been able to use focusing in the past year to really look at things that were happening to me both physically and emotionally, as I have patiently waited for my jawbone and tissue to regrow and to find a new normal within my body. From a focusing standpoint, this led me to look at focusing in physical pain and reach out to those in the community who use focusing and work with people's physical bodies to promote healing. That led me to interesting discussions with Barbara Dickinson as she prepared for hip surgery, and also with Anastasia Brensick and Jack Blackburn, who are body workers who incorporate focusing in the healing process. They are back now to talk about the interesting discoveries and experience they have had using focusing at a body level to promote wellness and a sense of rightness in the body. And now for part 3 of my conversation with Jack and Anastasia. Could you maybe describe that experience when the client meets you or meets your hands, or that feeling?
It's really exciting. So I think I had mentioned doing this kind of touch skill experience with my mother-in-law, who was dying, and she was in a coma in the hospital. And I put my hands on her, and I asked her to meet me where my hands were, and she did. The tissue warmed, there was openness, there was energy there, and that was amazing. And she was definitely not able to communicate in any other way. So there's something about someone else communicating through touch, through this way of meeting from the place of pain or from the place that hasn't pain. It's really either way, it still offers this wonderful dialogue through touch.
Yeah, like what happens though? Like you just feel it as a warmth, as a.
It's like when you walk into a room and you meet somebody that you know you're just going to really enjoy. They're almost going to be your best friend before you even said a word. There's an energy to it. There's a warmth. There's a draw, and it feels like that in the hand. Mm-hmm. It feels. It's not just feeling from the hands, but it's feeling from my whole body, because I'm also consciously tuning into being present, being open, and focusing if something comes up for me too. So I'm really trying to stay in wholeness and awareness while I'm with that person. So yes, so I'm feeling it in my hands, but I'm also feeling it in my whole body. It's tingling. It's an openness. There's it's like a river flowing without any rocks or stones to kind of change the flow. There's just a direct flow. And when someone touches me strongly versus lightly from the inside, you can feel the shift, the difference there, as a lightness, but still very much very warm and energetic.
Wow. Is that your experience too, Jack?
Oh, yeah. And when you get to a part of the body that's really tight and very difficult to, I mean, you would, if you were a rolfer or something, you'd have to use a lot of pressure to soften that tissue. What I say to clients, there's one ligament called the sacral tuberal ligament. It's from our bottom to the basically where the hamstring attaches to the sits bone. In any event, that was for some people it's bone hard. It feels like a bone, does not feel like a ligament. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to really have to work hard. I'm going to have the client work really hard to release this tissue. And but what I do is exactly the opposite. I just tap it very lightly, and I ask the client to touch my fingers as lightly as she can, and that tissue melts.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then what's the client's experience after that?
Same thing. She can feel the melting, she can feel the changing, and she can feel the relief that's happening right now in her body.
Wow.
It's an amazing thing. But you know, what's his name? Carl Rogers many years ago said, you know, psychotherapy is wrong. The client is the expert. We are the accompanist. Mm-hmm. And in a sense, if I would, you know, focusing is based. Janlin was a protege of Carl Rogers, so based on that idea that the client herself is the expert, and so if I can get her to come in, and if I can get her to moderate her touch so it's the lightest possible, all of a sudden something very, very incredible takes place. And just like Anastasia, you did a beautiful job of describing what it feels like, because there's a real sharing of presence that's happening right then between the practitioner and the client.
I just love the egalitarian nature of what you're describing there, where it's, you know, even though really it comes down to two people and like just the exchange of something rather than, you know, I'm here to give you money so that you can heal me or something. You know,
right.
These are experiences that sort of transcend that whole relationship that you like of real healing, like the kind of healing that that is enabled and received and experienced.
By both people
and lasting.
Yeah. But I would always say that there's a third thing in there.
Go.
Yeah, say more.
Well, I mean, I mean, this goes into spirituality, but there's another presence that
right.
when you're both there committed to that good that's going to happen, let's call it that, because it's going to result in a kind of a healing process, then there's something else there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called gathering. Mm-hmm. Wherever two or more are gathered, there I am.
Yes, I was going to quote that. I was thinking actually exactly about that, and and not even in the sort of. I won't talk about it in a religious way, but I will talk about it in a spiritual and in a consciousness way. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of those words do point toward a consciousness that is
Right.
ever present, that wants to be a part of that experience.
Right. Right.
But I mean,
so
I want to hear that from your perspective, both of you.
Well, I draw it as a mandorla. You know what a mandorla is?
Yes.
David, there's a lot of them in Italy because it was part of early Christian art. But it's two circles that are overlapping, and that overlap is the sharing experience. And then I draw a circle around those two circles that are overlapping, because that's the big P presence. That's the presence that's the presence of two that are joining.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Anastasia, what's your experience of that?
Well, I absolutely agree that when I'm with somebody, accompanying them with whatever is coming through, there's something else that's there. There's something bigger than both of us that's there. And it's bigger in a very gentle, kind way that I feel when I am out in nature, when I surf, when I'm playing with my child, and all those things that kind of open, meaningful, loving, caring energy is there, and it's energizing. I feel like I'm being healed at the same time that the person on the table is having their whole healing experience. And when I say healing, I mean coming into wholeness. And we both end up going, wow, this is really cool, rather than me saying, I have done this thing to you. We have experienced something together, and it's always very meaningful.
Yeah. I think that also describes a lot of the power in focusing partnership. Like if you just have a egalitarian focusing relationship, and a partnership that is ongoing, that I think anyone who's experienced that can certainly express that they have at some point experienced the awesomeness of like whatever comes into that process that that helps a kind of a healing happen.
Years ago, Carl Rogers wrote about that experience, and he said something that I, with certain clients and certain sessions, there's that we're both equally participating, and all of a sudden, there's nothing, we can do nothing wrong. Everything is pointing towards the healing. Everything.
Yeah, so beautiful. So beautiful. I have like a gigantic smile on my face right now as you say that. And it's something that it becomes less and less elusive as more focusing as you allow more focusing into your experience. And it's just a lovely, this is why I sort of encourage my thing is always to say to live life in a focusing way and to sort of be in relationship in that way. And so, wow.
So I have one more thing to add here, because Anastasia had brought it up in terms of dealing with medical practitioners.
Yeah.
And that is the language that we use as a companion is very significant. And this is partly directed towards psychotherapy world and also partly directed towards the bodywork world, but also comes basically from medicine. And that is when someone goes to see a doctor, maybe it'll be the second visit after they've sent all the lab stuff in and gotten the reports back from the lab, they're going to give you a diagnosis. And the diagnosis is a conclusion. And the problem with conclusions is that they don't have that open lightness. They don't have that feeling of, wow, anything can happen here. It's basically saying this is what's going to happen, and you're the patient, and I'm the doctor, I'm the expert, and this is what I'm telling you. So this is one of the reasons that patients catastrophize about what's going on, because there basically is a dead end there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, you're now on death row, or however you want to put it. That's the way clients interpret that kind of language a lot of the time, because they don't know the terminology that they're listening to. And they're probably not going to look it up because they're already too scared to do that. So having more, not putting a conclusion, and body workers are sometimes guilty of the same thing. We'll tell them what we think is really going on as a diagnosis. And that's a problem. There's no process in that diagnosis.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to add anything to that, Anastasia?
Well, yeah, we talked pretty extensively about this the other day, Jack and I, and the language does end the conversation. It stops the curiosity, and there's a way in which, so we know with research that MRIs show people what their spines look like and in the soft tissue areas of where there's pain. And a lot of people with low back pain will go get MRIs, and they'll have the evidence to prove why they're in pain. I've got a herniated disc. I've got an impinged nerve. I've got a bone spur, those kind of things, right? And logically, that makes sense, that if you have a piece of bone that's growing outside and kind of touching the tissue on the outside of it, there must be pain. But what we find is that the MRIs of people who don't have low back pain can oftentimes have the same issues, herniated discs, nerve impingement. So we don't have there's not a hard, fast rule that if you have this, that means that's the reason for the pain. So that's something to consider when we get diagnoses, that it doesn't necessarily mean that's the reason for the pain, even though logically you would think that would be the case.
Mm-hmm.
The other part is when, doctors get so little time to really help be with us as we are processing these things. And so it's really okay for us to take a moment and sense inwardly and notice how I am in this moment as I'm hearing the words disc degeneration. And you can find what belief systems or patterns that are keeping this pain in this particular cycle, that, this is proof that I'm broken, or this means that I can't do the things that I love anymore, or this means whatever it is that our minds are putting on it. And then we can sit with that and then notice, well, actually, I have the sense of no in my chest, or, I'm totally making this up at this particular point, but you can then find newness in what is being settled in. It's not the end of the conversation. So using focusing to continue the conversation as you get this information really supports us in really understanding what is there. Okay, so I have this, this disc degeneration, and what the doctor may not tell you is that has nothing to do with pain necessarily, that most of us at a particular age end up having disc degeneration, and it's totally part of the normal process of bones having gravity on them over a period of years. That's just not, it doesn't mean that you have pain.
Yeah.
And that can be freeing, that knowledge can be freeing in and of itself to then explore, so yeah, I can be with that and feel vibrancy. I can be with that and know I've really done some great things here, or whatever it is that comes. It's a way to keep the conversation, the dialogue going, and to also sense for that inner compass, that place that is wanting to keep you moving forward in your life. that life forward movement. Yeah.
That life force, that life forward movement. Yeah. It is such a beautiful, beautiful thing. Wow. We've really covered a lot of ground here, and I'm just taking a moment to really appreciate both of you and how much you have to offer, and the conversations that you have that produce this kind of depth of experience for me in this situation, and for your clients, and for each other, and for us together on a call like this today. So I don't want any of that to go unnoticed by either of you. I'm just sitting here in great appreciation of what you've been sharing.
Well, and I just want to say back to you, David, that asking us to think about and talk about this theme has brought Anastasia and I to a place where we recognize we have possibly a contribution to make in terms of the focusing community, from pain from a perspective that also involves the physical body, not just our interpretation of what's going on.
Well, I just want to take a moment right now to really thank you both for being here. I want to invite you both to even contact me when you'd like to come back, because I think this is an ongoing conversation that can really sort of open up our minds to our bodies. Let's put it that way, like that. Let's not separate them. Let's bring all of it into relationship, and let's let the thoughts and the pain and the physical and the ether come together so that we can learn a little bit more about this miracle that we have in our human body. Like the amount of miracle making that happens at our body level, but how we can come into relationship with all that and know it better.
And that we all add to the larger conversation about it.
Yes, that I think is so important. Because I hope that people who experience our conversation can feel sort of inspired by whatever they may be experiencing, and maybe even able to turn toward it in a way that they weren't looking or feeling about it before hearing this. So with that, I will say thank you both very, very much, and I hope to hear you both soon, again, sometime very soon.
So, David, a couple things. I will send you a copy of this PowerPoint presentation that I did for the Focusing Convention in Montreal some years ago, and it's basically about working with pain. And the other thing is, like we kind of started out, and this is my kind of reaching, this whole thing about fear, working with fear.
We could do a whole episode on that. We should.
Yeah.
We'll do that next.
That
would be fun. Yeah.
I'd be really happy to do that soon too. I'm not like, I don't, it's not like 3 months has to go by or something. I think if you guys want to do another call soon, then I would love to just do one completely focused on the fear inside of, because we're just like touching the surface here, and I think there's so much more to get into.
Oh,
I agree.
Well, blessings and thanks a lot.
Yes.
Oh, thank you both so much. It's such an honor. You've been listening to the Focusing Way podcast. For links and to subscribe, visit our website at thefocusingway.com. Follow us on Twitter at thefocusingway. Please share this podcast with others as a way of introducing them to the people, themes, concepts, and beauty of focusing. If you really enjoy this and want to support us, you can support us using Patreon as well. Until next time, I'm your host, David Battistella.